Before we get started, Sam, could you just give me an estimate of how long we have so I can, because it's all been moved around.
Yeah, hour 5.
Hour 5, and will you wave your arms 15 minutes before so we can get questions?
So we get some questions.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm going to introduce the panel shortly, but before we do that, I just wanted to play a short clip of a film which many of you might have seen. It's going a little bit viral, by a young woman called Grace Price. She's 17, 18 years old, and she's made a film which is very relevant to what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to see a couple of minutes of that.
Did you know that the chemical we use to bleach the flour inside of Twinkies is the exact same chemical utilized to create our most common disinfectant, Clorox? Oh, and by the way, the chemical is chlorine gas. And this is just one out of the 37 total ingredients inside of a Twinkie. This is standard for ultra-processed foods. And if even that didn't scare you, I've got just the thing. One large order of French fries made in your typical cooking oil is equivalent to smoking 25 cigarettes. So next time you hand your child a thing of French fries, just keep in mind actually how much harm it is causing them. The people who think that cigarettes cause cancer aren't wrong. It's just the 21st century version of cigarettes. The modern killer today is the average American diet. Fruit Loops, granola bars, frappuccinos, ketchup, bagels, chips, Coke, Capri Sun, Twinkies, muffins, Snickers, crackers, pancakes, yogurt, pizza, pasta, Pepsi, and the list goes on. Just as we rallied against the dangers of smoking, it's time to wage a war against the toxic foods that have silently infiltrated our diets. It's not in the hands of the government or your doctor to decide whether you are going to partake in unhealthy lifestyle choices. So are you going to allow your future to be filled with preventable cancers? The choice is yours.
So there we go. So that is a teenager talking to other teenagers to try and change the way they eat, which is pretty impressive. And it tees us up very nicely for what we're going to talk about today, as have a couple of other sessions. The Real Food Rebellion session yesterday was about teaching people about the dangers of ultra-processed food. Ellen's session this morning. So we've had a taster of it all, and I hope we're just going to dig deeper now. And I'm going to start by introducing the panel. Unfortunately, one isn't here. Eddie? Oh, he's on his way. Okay. We'll do you last then. Okay. And I know that all of these people are familiar to you because you've heard them, but there may be people today who've only come for the day, or maybe people live streaming who don't know who people are, so I'm going to introduce. We have at the end Gary Taubes. Many of you will have read his great books. He is an investigative science and health journalist, author of now 5 books on diet, chronic disease, beginning with The Diet Delusion in 2007, which was called Good Calories, Bad Calories in the US, and most recently, Rethinking Diabetes, which came out in January. Then we have Ellen Culto, RD, who you heard from this morning. Ellen is a single mom to an amazing little girl who I think is here watching everything. Is this correct? So, wow, that's great. Fantastic. And as you know, Ellen is a registered dietitian and a food addict in recovery who has lost 11 stones and has since helped others to find peace. She's the creator of Liberate, an educational and social support program to help groups of people find recovery from food addiction. And we have Chris Hill beside me, who we also heard from yesterday, who's been a teacher for over 36 years, the last 15 years at a very senior level as a deputy head, and latterly as governor of a primary school. And she's leading the Real Food Rebellion initiative, about which we heard yesterday. And Eddie, welcome. So, a lot of you probably also know Eddie, but for those that don't, Eddie is a qualified nurse specializing in psychiatry and a prominent figure in the fitness community. He has been British bodybuilding champion for many years. More recently, he's become known for his nutrition advice to avoid processed foods. Why are you laughing? It has influenced millions on social media. Eddie is a TikTok and Instagram sensation. We know that. And I also want to tell you something else about Eddie, which is about 20 minutes ago, we had a conversation, and he said, I really like to talk, and I find it hard to shut up. So you're going to have to tell me to shut up. So if you think that I'm being rude at any point in this discussion, it is by necessity. And I will do it, Eddie. Okay? I will do it. Okay. All right. So let's start with a bit of background, which is that film and the messages that it's putting out, which is about the dangers of processed food and what it might be doing to our body. I want to start by asking all of you what you have seen as the manifestations of those dangers. What are the symptoms amongst young people that you are seeing in your daily work? Chris, I'm going to start with you.
Oh gosh, I could speak for hours of what I've seen. One boy stands out for me. He was 12 years old, had black front teeth, half of them missing, and he was proud of the fact that he could buy a family-sized pack of chocolate digestives for 90p and eat them all by 11 a.m. with a litre of Coke. He had a lot of behavioural problems. In fact, I used to teach him Spanish, and he struggled, and one day he was so upset he couldn't understand about verb conjugation. He was hitting his head against my iron filing cabinet, and to this day there is a big dent in that cabinet from that boy. And he used to come into my classroom and say, Miss, I've had sugar, I'm high. And there's three things that send kids wappy in school. There is high wind, snow. If you're teaching and it starts snowing, you've got no chance, no chance. And sugar. And sugar, they recognise they've had sugar. And they will come to you and they say, Miss, I can't sit still. And the worst lessons are the lessons after break and after lunch, when they've eaten all the rubbish and they are high as kites. So that's what I've seen. I have seen the mental health issues with young people. I've had 12-year-old commit suicide, 16-year-old commit suicide. That was just all in 1 year. 30 years previously had never happened. In the last 5 years, the amount of children that are cutting themselves regularly, having massive depressive fits, it's shocking. And the most shocking thing for me was lockdown. So students that you saw that were maybe slightly plump before, after that first big lockdown, they came back and they had doubled in size. It was enough to make you stop and think, whoa, what's happened? So what I see in terms of mental health, their self-esteem, and then it's coupled with all the Instagram and the social media and the social pressure. That used to be just girls, and now it's boys as well. Eating disorders. Working in school is a very privileged thing. I think out of all society, teachers and maybe then GPs get the biggest insight into family life and contact with the widest range of people. And what we see on a daily basis, I think, is truly shocking.
I think for what I see is, I don't work with children a lot, but I do get to see a lot of kids. with my daughter is their attention span. It's very, very short. How the birthday parties are very different as well. When we go to ones with sweets and cakes and things. It always seems as we don't have sugar at our birthday parties, and they all seem to have a really good time. But I've never had any of the kids actually come and ask for it. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if actually they're just having way too much fun to even realise there's no sweets there. One thing that worries me from a food addiction point of view is the research that was brought out not so long ago that they suspect there's about 12% of children with food addiction. Now, we don't know, will they grow out of that? Or will we end up with more? We don't know that yet. But if it's more likely that we're going to see the 14% of the adult population going right up. That's what worries me. It's that tsunami that's about to come. Thank you. Gary.
Okay, and I can't speak to this personally because I never leave my office. And my only experience with these foods are what my children eat, and I've promised my wife that I wouldn't embarrass them in public. So I'm going to pass this along to Eddie, who I hear will speak for me.
My journey, what I'm doing now in social media, started with my disdain for the fitness industry. My goal from age 15 was to become a professional bodybuilder, to actually get on the stage, the same stage as Arnie got onto, and literally use it as impetus to open my own gym and train people, because I became addicted to muscle building from a young age. And then I achieved my goal, got on the stage, and then I started training young men and women to build muscle. And then there's this tsunami came in about 2011, 2012. You can do the same thing. When I started out, it was all about nutrition, single ingredient foods. We used to drink blended liver. We used to chew desiccated liver tablets. It's about nutrients. And then I call them the dumb brigade. They just infiltrated the industry. Or you can do the same thing with ultra-processed foods. So I see young men and women come into my gym and they'll train, and you see them eating cereal afterwards. And then slowly I saw them transition to their spotty faces and the moody and the anxiety and the depression. And I'm saying that on a daily basis. And I set out to just trash the fitness industry. So most of what you see me doing is revenge. It's getting my own. But I'm being honest. It was revenge, because I'm collectively, and fitness industry is full of bodybuilders. Collectively, we are not the smartest, the sharpest knives in the two bodybuilders, in the toolbox, and or in the drawer. Let's get it right. And so it's easy to pull the wool over our eyes. And I was seeing these young guys coming in. They look good, but all the metabolic, you can see their faces, you can see the energy, and they're always tired. And I'm thinking, there's a boy who's 21 years old, and he's sitting there tired. I said, but what are you doing? He's drinking this stupid whey protein drinks with the powders, and he's 21. I said, look, when I was your age, I wasn't that miserable. When I was your age, I was trying to stick my thing in every woman I saw. Not saying they're being miserable. So that's the energy's gone, and I couldn't understand it. So I set out to educate these young people. So that's how my journey started.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Eddie. That was really good self-regulation. I think that wasn't it? It was great. 2 minutes. That's it. I'm glad you have the microphone, because my next question is a sort of pesky, sciencey sort of question, which I think we do need to resolve. In books like Chris Van Tulleken's book, Ultra-Processed People, there's a chapter called Ultra-Processed Food Sounds Bad, but is it really a problem? And he goes on to discuss all of the epidemiology, which shows that it is indeed a problem, so that it's causing chronic disease. I say causing. It's associated with chronic disease. And it's true that the effects shown are not as high as I would have expected them to be, given what the kind of thing that we hear on the stage from people who are seeing the harm. So the hazard ratios of most of those studies are nowhere near the 2 times that you would expect to infer a causal relationship. That doesn't mean there isn't one, it just means that the epidemiology is not very convincing. Gary, I'm going to land you in it and ask you, why might the epidemiology not fully reflect the harms that we're seeing around us from ultra-processed food consumption?
Or over-reflect the harms? Okay, so I am a critic of the concept of ultra-processed foods. Just as I'm a critic of epidemiology in general, and I think nutritional epidemiology may have done more harm than good in the long term. So I watch something like this wonderful video, and I see the packet of chips, fries, we'd say in the US, are as bad as a box of Marlboro cigarettes. And we're pretty confident that we could take this audience, divide you in half, have half of you smoke a pack of cigarettes every day, and have the other half not. And the half that smokes a pack of cigarettes will have a 20-fold increased risk of lung cancer. And so 30 years from now, 30 of you guys will have lung cancer, and maybe 1 of you guys. And that's, so even though we only have an association between smoking and lung cancer, it's a powerful association. I'm also supposed to believe that if I randomize you into 2 and you go about your lives exactly as you're doing today, but you guys eat a packet of French fries every day from McDonald's and you don't. Now this is more complicated because this audience tends to be keto. Okay? So it's an interesting fact right there scientifically. If you eat the French fries, I'm going to suspect that this half is going to be fatter, because keto might be a threshold thing, which is interesting. So you're going to be over the threshold of insulin secretion and fat sensitivity and all that stuff. But am I actually going to believe that you're going to have a 20-fold increased risk of any disease compared to this simply because of the French fries? And then the question becomes, what are we making the French fries in? Does it depend on the fat that we're deep frying it in? Is it, if it's seed oils? And if it's not seed oils, it's fine. Is it the potatoes that's doing the damage? Is it the carbs? And if I had half of you drink Coca-Cola and the other half not, would I see the same thing I would see if I had half of you eat French fries, irregardless of what oil we're deep frying it in? It gets very complicated. Okay? I mean, with keto people, I do suspect that the French fries are going to cause a hell of a lot of damage, but I don't know why, and I don't know if the seed oils or the oil that you deep fry it in is going to make any difference. The problem when you look at people who are eating highly processed, ultra-processed foods, I actually prefer, the one thing I liked about Michael Pollan's book, In Defense of Food, is the concept of food-like substances, which says the same thing without the veneer of science. My mother used to call it junk food. If you went to McDonald's, you knew you were getting junk food. Didn't matter what kind, but it didn't differentiate. But the people who eat a lot of ultra-processed foods are very different than the people who don't. Okay, people who avoid ultra-processed foods, first of all, they can afford to avoid ultra-processed foods. They don't have to eat at fast food joints. They tend to be higher socioeconomic status. Somewhere along the line, somebody told them that junk food is bad for them. They were more health conscious. If they avoid it entirely, they're very health conscious. Okay, you've got to be able to afford to be health conscious. You're probably higher educated. You probably have better doctors. So you're getting better medical care. You're probably not smoking cigarettes. By the way, I was chewing a Nicorette. When I think of nicotine addiction, it's a guy who's chewing a Nicorette 25 years after he quit smoking. Okay? So when you compare people who eat ultra-processed foods to people who don't, which is what these epidemiologic surveys do, you're comparing people who are health conscious to people who aren't. You're comparing people who can afford to avoid junk food, who don't live in Croydon, to people who do. Okay? They're very different types of people in a very different type of environment who think very differently.
Okay.
Students you're seeing are coming through with all these problems. Of lower socioeconomic status, students whose parents are not health conscious, whose parents were born into from a womb of a mother who was not health conscious, who was struggling with these same metabolic diseases themselves and maybe eating this same crap because it's all she could afford or because nobody taught her that she should be eating better. So you're seeing not just the difference in this generation, but the difference in the generation that preceded it that gave birth to them. And then we're saying it's the food. Now, we think we could fix it because we're pretty confident that if we get these people on the right diet, they will get healthy. Okay, and that'll entail a lot of changes, but the idea that what we're seeing is because of those foods, based on the epidemiology, is very shaky. I think it is. I mean, I think it's a large part of the problem, but even then, the reason I don't like the concept of ultra-processed food is because I personally think it's the ultra-processed carbohydrates and the sugars. And I think that if we split you guys into 3 groups, and one of you had your perfectly healthy diets that you're eating today because you're all health conscious and higher socioeconomic status and you could afford to eat and cook and all that, and one of you drank a Coca-Cola every day because that's what you were randomized to, and the group in the back only got fresh squeezed lemonade with sugar, made at home by mom or grandma or our kids. I'm not sure the Coke and the sugar people would be any, and the lemonade people would be any different. I think you'd all be different than you guys who got to just keep doing what you're doing now. So there's all these issues that get, you wrap it up in a term like ultra-processed, and it all becomes bad. Like every once in a while, I eat a keto bar. I convince myself it's good for me, or it's at least not bad for me, right? Even though as soon as I have one, I crave more because of the artificial sweeteners, another addiction. I would never have a Snickers bar, even though I grew up eating Snickers. They're both ultra-processed, undeniably. I have a lot of ingredients, undeniably. The keto bar might be made from healthy fats, it might be made from seed oils, it depends what kind. It might be made with allulose as a sweetener, just lowering my glucagon levels and lowering my blood sugar. It might be made from fruit alcohols, sugar alcohols, or monk fruit, or something else. All those things could have a difference. As soon as you use a term like ultra-processed, that doesn't matter anymore. So to me, this is getting away from...
I think I might have to shut you up, Gary.
Yeah.
No, I was kidding.
Right. You are right. Actually, as Eddie would probably say, Gary, shut the fuck up, okay? And
Yeah, he probably would.
Listening to you, I don't know, without trying to judge, I think you bought into a little bit into the ultra-processed, they're all processed. I think we should all be cooking our own food. Nothing that comes in a packet is food, whether it's used, whatever ingredient they use. That's how extreme I am. Anything in the packet with a label on it, I stay away from it. Because I think that's why it's been normalized. Everybody thinks it's okay when you go to the supermarket. I mean, people think I'm crazy because I go to the butcher's. You know, what's wrong with you? Come on, you've got to enjoy life. Why don't you just have a piece of cake? And what the fuck do I want a piece of cake? I don't need a piece of cake to have fun. You know, so I think we bought into, we should slowly try to change the language. Put all this, anything in a packet, you know, we don't need this, we don't need this. The more we demonize those foods, the more all of us were thinking, okay, maybe we should all start cooking. We used to cook for my kids. My mum used to cook for me. There was never once that anything was bought in a packet when I was a child. And can we get back to that point where we're cooking for ourselves rather than thinking, oh, you know, he's got less ingredients. No, it's the same shit.
Yeah, I would like to add something on that point and on Gary's point about the lemonade that's squeezed and made by mom with 3 tablespoons of sugar is probably just as bad for you as the stuff you're buying in a can from the shop. The difference may be, my hypothesis is that the availability of that stuff is now what is the problem.
It's normal.
Because mom isn't making lemonade every day. She might make it once a week or never. And so you wouldn't get it as a kid, but now you can buy it as much as you want, right?
It is, you can buy it, and it is cheap, but then you see, like even Michael Pollan argued we should eat what our grandmothers made, and grandma was all baking and making lemonade and making her kids metabolically unhealthy. And it may not have, and indeed I think part of the revolution is the availability of these foods. When you look at the history of sugar, you see, in the 1930s and 1940s, suddenly when you get refrigerators, as soon as you have refrigerators, you can have cold sodas everywhere. It goes from being something that you would buy in literally a soda counter in a drugstore to being something you could buy in every gas station. And then when you have refrigerators at home, it's something you could have at home. When I was a kid, we used to make orange juice from concentrate. Remember that, the frozen concentrate? And you'd have to put it in the blender and add water, and if your freezer was too cold, it would take too long to blend it. So everything makes them all available. And I agree with Eddie completely about the advice we should give people, but there are different perspectives in which the way we talk about it matters, and what we end up going after matters.
I'm not too sure about just thinking about ultra-processed foods being quite cheap, because it's a bit limiting, because actually they're not cheap in the long run. It's an investment on our health. I can't tell you how much I spent on slimming teas and slimming capsules and the next fad and the supplements and all of these things. It's actually a false economy to be thinking that I'm saving money using the ultra-processed foods. So perhaps trying to get in our kids to think, well, yes, it looks cheap right now, but later on down the line, it's not just going to cost you in your health, it's everything else that you're going to have to buy with it to counteract all of those ultra-processed foods that you had when you were younger.
I think the point we're missing is that young children think they're invincible. It's no good telling a teenager that you'll get cancer, you'll get metabolic. They don't care. They just want to look good now. They want to feel good now. They think you're an old fogey. They're not bothered. That does not motivate young people. God, we've tried. We're not the first program that's tried to. I've taught children about drugs, smoking, all sorts of things that they don't care. They don't care. You'd always get the kids that will smoke. You'll get the 12-year-olds that start on the ganja. If they want to do it, they'll do it. Peer pressure. And going back to Eddie and your nothing out of a packet, for a lot of families, that's not possible. We're looking at 2 or 3 generations who have never cooked. Cooking to some people is getting the pasta and getting that tin of tomato, whatever, and they feel they've cooked a healthy meal. I have students who have never seen a potato, don't recognise a potato. They've only ever seen smash or French fries, crisps. They've never seen a real potato. And I think the problem is it's easy saying, well, let's get them to eat different food. But it's such a deep problem. It's not just the food, it's the society we live in, it's the demographic, it's the generations of not knowing how to cook, of the poverty of some people. My family think I'm a real lefty, and I'm not. I've just seen real life that most people do not have the privilege of seeing. And when you see the things that go on in families, the problems that they have, food is like the minimal problem that they have. Sometimes it's just keeping a roof over their head. I've bought breakfast for children because the loaf of bread finished on a Wednesday and they've got nothing till Friday. But the parents can buy a few packets of cigarettes. That's what we're dealing with. So I think we're probably quite privileged that here, and to say that just eat different food, it's a bigger problem than that.
Thank you. Before you pass, you can have it, Eddie, but I'm just going to ask a question, which is, if young people don't care because they think they're invincible, they're not hearing the messages about long-term cancer risk or long-term heart disease risk, they want what's going to impact them now. What is the language that we need to be using? What are the levers that we can pull? And you start with Eddie if he wants, or whoever. Yeah.
I just wanted to say briefly about that. When I was young, and my mother was very health conscious, and I was taught to eat properly, and we wouldn't have no processed foods in the house. I think we had canned fruits, but canned vegetables were even anathema in our house. I still grew up, I boxed, I played American football, I drove motorcycles. The fact that I lived past my 20s is a miracle, okay? And I almost mean that literally, because there were times when it was very unclear in the short term whether I was going to survive. It's asking a lot to ask children, adolescents, I don't know, I assume we're programmed this way for a reason, to avoid risk-taking behaviors and to understand risk-taking behaviors. Because even while I was in theory eating healthy, I was doing everything else I could to shorten my life. And then we haven't even gotten into the pharmaceuticals, illegal, non-prescription pharmaceutical usage.
So, what will make young people listen? People like Eddie make young people listen, and Eddie has done a little video for us to put on RFR, so thank you, Eddie, without swearing. So, thank you. Because the children will see that at the end, and then they will go onto Instagram, and they will love the sweary bit, but we can't do that they will eat you up, and that message will get through. Peer pressure is a big one. By the age of 12, 13, their parents hate it. Kids, their friends become their life. Parents are sort of embarrassing by that time. They'll come back to you when they're 21, but for those next intervening years, their friends are their life. And they all like to do the same thing. Social media is a really big thing now, for good and for bad. But if you can get into that area and influence them that way, they care about what they look like. They care about the spots. They care about not having greasy hair. They care about their mental health more and more. They're more and more aware of it. We have a lot more information about it in schools now. Majority want to do well in exams. They want to do well in life, even though they say they don't. They do. I'd say that majority of parents, I'm not going to say all parents, majority of parents want the best for their children and will take stuff on board if you give it to them in a way that they can access. So I think the route to children is, we say, winning hearts and minds. They don't care what they're going to be like at the age of 50. They care about what happens today. And you've got to get to them through what they love, which is the social media, what they look like, how they feel, how they're going to concentrate in their exams, what's going to make them sleep better. Which is why we're using things like apps that'll be like video games, and people like Eddie, and our lessons are very video and interactive. And just making them, that kids like a cause. You look at the Greta Thunberg effect. They hate being hard done by. They hate thinking they've been duped. They hate thinking people are lying to them and conning them. And that's the way we feel we're going to get to them. Because they've heard all the other stuff before. Heard it all before. And it just... and they'll be trying to sneak a Dorito while they're... And I can smell them when they're eating them. So like, Miss, how did you know? I can smell it. So I think that's the way. They've heard it all before. It needs to be in their arena. That's how you're going to get them.
I think Eddie has something he wants to say. Eddie, before you start, could you, I'd just love you to tell us what language you use. Well, we know what language he uses. What are the triggers that the levers that you're pulling, and do you change them whether you're talking on social media or at Eton College like you did a week ago?
Okay, the saddest and the most effective message I ever received, and we get thousands of messages, like in an hour. They're coming in, I've got my team here, and they'll tell you how much they come in. And it was a 13-year-old girl, and she says, because of you, can you turn that damn thing off? It's a 13-year-old who said, Eddie, thank you. Because of you, I've taught my mum how to cook. We don't have money, and it costs £5 to make the dinner that you suggested. We bought chicken thighs, we bought vegetables. So please don't underestimate children. The reason why, don't underestimate children. I know you're an educator, and I understand that, but the children have been wronged. We are wronging them, and I think now my social media tells me that they are listening. That's the reason why we've got an invite to Oxford University, we've got an invite to Warwick University, we've got an invite to St. Paul's. They're all coming in. We've got an invite to Eton. Because the language that you guys are speaking is fucking boring. It's fucking boring. And I'll say it, Lana, because it's just like, oh yeah, let's talk about mitochondrial dysfunction. Let's talk about, let's talk about how they don't want to fucking hear that. They want to know that the fucking food industry is putting it. Okay. No, I know you'd be sad, but that's why I come in. I mean, Chris Van Taliken, I read his book, Ultra Processed Paper, and he said to me, Eddie, the way you're delivering your messages is what we need. What's actually going to facilitate change, because you are hitting the grassroots, and that's what I'm trying to do. So we get big videos of young people saying, Eddie, we are at uni and we are cooking. When I went to Eton, I went past a dormitory, and all we did, they were frying steak and burning it in their dormitories. And they're saying, Eddie, it's because of you. Now, please don't underestimate these children, because they actually got the capacity to learn quicker than we have. And you know that, because they're like sponges. And because we're delivering the message wrongly. And I think that the way we deliver, I'm not saying everybody should swear, but just like the Chris Van Taliken did with his team and Dr. Zand, they send me lots of data. I said, Eddie, just use it as you will. So they send me emails of lots of research, and I use bits of it to make my videos. So even though a lot of people say Eddie's chatting shit, because they've never heard it before. Now, if you've got a 13-year-old whose parents were never taught how to cook, whose grandparents were probably never taught how to cook, because if you've got somebody who's 13-year-old and the mother is 30, which is possible, and the grandmother is 46, which is possible, they don't know. No, but it's the truth. It's the truth. They don't know how to cook, which is in the area that sometimes our business services. So they don't know how to cook. Now, when you teach that child, the child starts feeling good, because we're talking about the gut-brain axis. And I said to them, it's all about what you put in here. The gut-brain axis. I said, there are two things you need to fix with your life. That's what I said to the kids. Hyperinsulinemia, which all of you have, and poor gut health. Let's fix those two. And they look at me like a sponges, and they absorb the information. And they're teaching their parents, and their parents are in turn teaching their grandparents. And that's where we got to start. Instead of undermining them and saying, oh, these kids, they are this, they are that. They are that because we're not teaching them properly. They're not little adults, they are children. We have to remember that. They're not little adults, they are children. We've got to approach it differently. We've got to hit them where it hurts. They like a bit of a conspiracy edge to it as well. They think you're fucking stupid. You're eating that. Look at your face, another spot you got in your face because of that shit you're eating. And then they think, okay, as well, do me a favor, stop eating that shit for 2 weeks. And then it works. And then they're sold. So we've got to find a different way of hitting the kids rather than what we're doing.
Okay, first of all, I agree with Eddie so much that the next time you're in the US, I want you to come to Oakland and speak to my youngest son for me. That's interesting. I have two children. I have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. The 15-year-old is lean and athletic, and the 18-year-old is thick. He has my body, and he's not athletic. And the 18-year-old now kind of eats like I do because he wants to look better. And the 15-year-old doesn't really care because anything he eats, it doesn't matter, except his skin. Okay, so I could tell him, stop eating the damn chip, and you'll stop breaking out, and you'll go back to being the handsome kid you were 6 months ago, instead of the, what, papilliferous, I think is a technical boring term. But we all have different roles, and that's the other thing. So we can't speak to physicians, and teachers can't speak to their students the way you can speak to their students, so you get brought in to speak to their students. I have made it my career to be as boring as possible when I talk to doctors. I actually have boring clothes to wear. I mean, I'm dressed differently today to talk to you than I am during the day, and I have a different set of outfits that I could wear if I have to give grand rounds in a medical school, because I have to get those people to think I'm like them, so they will listen to me. And so there's a different spectrums of conversation. The doctors can find us as shocking as kids will find you, and as soon as they do, you shut them off, whereas you can reach kids. So there is a place for boring language. However, your kids are so used to you boring them with your advice. And I want to, if you don't do the screens yet, let's get there. And also for my 15-year-old and the 18-year-old.
Thank you. I think that was a really good point, that there's a spectrum of approaches that we need. And we need Eddie's approach, we need Ellen's, we need Chris's approach in schools, because that's the only one that's going to work, and it's not patronizing, it's just working within the lines, right? And we need Gary to be boring. That's right, don't we? I wanted to raise another question. Steve Bennett said yesterday at dinner that it would be great, and what we need to do is to get people to hate the food companies the way they began to hate tobacco companies. He said, I don't know, I think, Steve, you said, I don't know how we do that. Is that necessary, and how do we do that?
Incognito. The thing is, it's not. So one of my the members of my gym, she walked up to me and said to me, "Eddie, I hate you." I said, "Why?" Because of you, M&S are trying to, bring out products that are on just a few less ingredients, and it's all because of you. And she was literally having a go at me. I mean, it was all in jest, but then it's having an impact. We have to demonize these companies because what they're doing is wrong. That's the same way they demonize tobacco companies. I was here. The marketing, the advertising, the campaign was huge. I remember seeing a poster. I had a poster on my wall with a superhero called Nick O'Teen. And the thing was, Nick O'Teen is a weed, and literally they demonized it and it worked. But I think tobacco has caused more harm than these ultra-processed foods. So why are they not campaigning? And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to demonize the companies, all of them. I mean, Reese's, whatever, fucking, what do you call the Reese, the company, I don't know what they make.
Peanut butter cup pieces?
Yeah. No, we're not. Because they've been normalized. Because they've been normalized, if the more we keep demonizing these foods, the more the people who are eating them, because I think the revolution has to start from the grassroots, not from us guys, because we're just sitting here making noise that nobody is hearing. The kids don't give a shit. If you show this video to after this conference to a 13-year-old, they'd be, they want to watch. They don't want to watch it. They want something that brings them in. A bit conspiracy. The reason why you're thick at school is because you're eating that shit. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you say, well, if you don't want to be thick, trust it. 3 weeks, eat this. And it works. And literally, they come to me. I had a young boy stopped his car in the middle of the road. 17 years old, he came running. In the middle of the road, he got out of his car driving, and he said, Eddie, I got to talk to you. I said, why? Because of you, my brain is locked in. My exam is coming, and I'm prepared for it. I feel smart. And I said, what do you mean? Because I eat exactly what you suggest, and my inflammation is gone. And it's almost like I've opened a different compartment in my brain. And I just thought, I nearly cried, because that's what I'm trying to do. I want to hit the people who are not being targeted, the people who cannot afford to. We can't sit here and say, oh, the mother is buying cigarettes for instead of buying food. If you give a child £5 and said, well, get ingredients and they can cook for like 3 meals, if you really know exactly. And that's what I'm trying to show my daughter here. We've got a company called ProPrep, and we're going to be doing YouTube videos for how children can cook for themselves and how they can empower themselves. And we can do it. Let's start with the children, because change is not going to happen from the top. It's not. If it would have happened a long time ago. Our politicians don't give a flying fuck about they don't give a flight. And it's not. And our doctors, I mean, it's, what do you call it, CYA, cover your own ass. They have to. It's the truth. If you go to the doctor with, let's say, with high cholesterol, and he doesn't give you statins, and something happens to you, he's fucked. He's not following the guidelines. So the hands are tied. We are the ones that have to make the change ourselves. And we have to start, when you live here, when you get home, just say to your kids, look, let me teach you how to cook. If you don't know, go on fucking YouTube. There's so many things that you can learn. Just teach how to mix your own ingredients rather than trusting these motherfucking companies to make you big products that is going to... I mean, it doesn't matter how good the product, whether, like we talk about the grandmother making the lemonade. They didn't put fucking emulsifiers in it. They didn't put xanthan gum in it. And they didn't put all of that in it. Just, obviously it's sugar in it, but they didn't put the other stuff. Whereas these guys are putting other stuff to make it last as long as possible and to make it even better. So it tastes better and make you addicted. So, yeah, there's a difference. There is a difference. You know, we are eating poison, and there's no other word for it. The best phrase I heard recently was treat ultra-processed foods as you would treat, what's it called, recreational drugs. It's once in a while food. Once in a while you think, oh, I'm going to get off my nut. I'm going to have a packet of biscuits. You know. Open it up, you know, just put it there, like, go on. You look at me.
I'm looking at my watch, and I know I'm going to get some waving hands in about 10 minutes. So I wanted to ask you all, you must all have a certain degree of hope to be doing the work you do. You must think things can change, or you wouldn't be doing it. But what would you say, each of you, is the biggest barrier to change that destroys your hope or dampens your hope that you think we need to overcome? Chris, you can start.
Well, as you would have heard yesterday, I think the biggest barrier are the adults, the teachers, and in some degree parents. Children give me a lot of hope. As Eddie says, children have a really strong sense of injustice. And if we teach them, as we are in the RFR programme, how they have been conned and lied to, we teach them that the same companies that make their food make the bleach that cleans their toilets, makes their dog food, makes lots of other things. If we teach them about all the horrendous stuff that goes into this food, and why we talked about the climax thing yesterday, didn't we? But how it gets them to a certain level and keeps them going. And they're actually making fun of them. Once you pop, you can't stop. They're saying it to their faces. They're laughing at them. And kids, once they realise that, get a sense of, we want them to be rebels, because we've shown them how to write a letter to MPs, how to get involved with a brilliant charity called Bite Back, who show them, they show a brilliant video clip of 4 teenagers, and they give them an envelope and say, go to this restaurant and order a meal. And after they've ordered the meal, they can open the envelope, and the envelope has predicted what food they will order. And they're all horrified. And then it shows them how the food companies did that with the subliminal messaging. So on the hoarding boards, on the TikTok, on the adverts in the taxi, on the tube, on the radio, little flashes that they've seen on little boards in the street. They know what they're doing. They spend millions and millions of pounds getting you to eat that stuff. And once children know that, they'll start fighting back, because they like I say, they have this sense of justice. So to me, the barrier is the teachers who think eating real food is extreme. I found that shocking. And I think that is because it's touching a nerve with them. It's hitting home, and they don't, because vegan isn't extreme. We should be promoting vegan, but normal food is extreme. I can't wait to meet them in July, because I'm going to meet the 7 teachers that are teaching, and I want them to justify to me what is extreme about meat, fish, potato. Just tell me what is extreme about that diet compared to a box of cereal that's got crap in it. So those are the barriers.
The adults are the barriers.
It's all those social things, because this is such a big problem. But it's the adults. The kids will do it. We've just got to let them do it, because they will find their way if we give them the right information and sow those seeds of change. They might not do it overnight. I'm not expecting all these kids to well, this is crap, I'm not eating that anymore. They love it. I've told the story where I was so sick of them eating Haribos. In a lesson I said, you know what that is? It's all like ears and tails and bones and all sorts of rubbishy bits of the animals, which probably carnivores love. Boiled in a big vat for days, and it gets all gelatinous, and they add sugar and flavouring, and that's Haribo. They're all like, oh, miss, oh, puke, puke. Oh, but the tastes are good. Do you want one? And I just thought, wow, God, what does it take? But it will happen. It will happen.
So Ellen was talking earlier today about it won't happen all at once, it's one day at a time. Do you want to say something about overcoming barriers that way?
Yeah, I was thinking more about hope. I don't want to talk about any more barriers, but that's me personally. I'm feeling quite hopeful overall, really, with all these influencers and the movements like Bite Back, what you're doing, Eddie, what RFR are doing from the bottom up, and then hopefully with what Jen's doing to get to ultra-processed food addiction recognised, so that we can protect our children. If we get that recognised, it won't be allowed to be served at school and at the children's hospitals and at leisure centres and things like that. We can start protecting them from the top and do a bit of a pincer moment there. But it would be great if the kids would just rise up against it and say, no, I do not want that for my lunch. I want real food. And then they'd have to listen. If enough kids do that and they wouldn't eat at school, get a whole class, a couple of classes to do that, that'd be wonderful. That's where I'd feel hopeful. Yeah.
I just want to add, parents do listen to children. As they get older, you try stopping a teenager being vegan if you're a parent, or a vegetarian. They are on it, like a car bonnet. So if they want something, it's hard to stop them, isn't it? So you just need them wanting the right thing.
Gary, what gives you hope?
What do I hope, or what's the biggest?
What gives you hope, and what's the barrier? You can talk about barriers
Well,
or
this
hope.
gives me hope.
This.
Okay, Eddie gives me hope. I mean, this 20 years ago, 20 years ago, if you were in a meeting getting information on how to eat healthy, they'd tell you to eat a low-salt diet and a low-fat diet and to avoid, keep your LDL low. Now we could have a group of people who are going after processed foods and ultra-processed foods and sugar, and, the world is changing. Unfortunately, there are ways in which it's changing against us. I think the biggest barriers ultimately are, the food industry on one hand, because there's an enormous industry which employs an enormous amount of people who are parents of the children that we're trying to reach, who won't have an income if their industries are put out of work. So they have to understand how to make healthy foods, and they're not in the business of selling whole foods. They're in the business of selling processed foods. So ideally, they're going to sell processed foods that are healthy, if such a thing is possible, which then gets to agreeing on what makes a processed food unhealthy. Is it purely the processing? Because those industries aren't going away. I mean, we didn't put the tobacco industry out of business. They're just selling fewer cigarettes, and they're selling more in China. So on some level, my goal is always the barrier is a lack of understanding or a lack of agreement about what it is in the foods that makes them cause chronic diseases and acne and mental health issues and lack of energy. And if we could identify that, then the industry can make healthy, perhaps slightly less processed foods. And hopefully our kids will still eat, and the world, our adults, their parents will cook more and eat more whole foods, but there's always going to be people who can't afford that, and people don't have time for that, and mothers who have 3 children at home and a single household and come home from 2 jobs and do not have the time to cook healthy and are going to have to order in from places that are relatively inexpensive and serve relatively fast food. And it would help if that food was healthier and that it didn't mean agreeing on what makes it unhealthy. And we don't agree.
My social media team, the oldest, I got 4 Gen Zs, you know. The oldest is 25, my daughter, and there's got Mansi and it's Fahad, they're 21, 22. You know, I got older nostril hair than they have there. And there's another one, Freddie, who is 20 years old. But when I asked the boys, I said, why did you come to me? They saw my following is going up slowly. I think they came to me with about 8K followers. We had 8,000 followers on I think Insta, wasn't it? And I think it was about a bit more on social, 50, 60K on Instagram. And they're like, well, why did you come here? It's because we tried what you're doing, and we taught our families. Our families are eating better. So the barrier is how we came in. We got to just stop this nonsense about barrier. Look, the companies don't give a shit. They want to make money. Politicians don't give a shit. They want to make money. They want to, lie in the same fucking bed with these companies. But the revolt has to come from the youth, and that's why I was invited to Eton College. It doesn't matter what we say. The rebellion is going to come from the grassroots, because they're eating properly and they're feeling good, and they're like, hang on, we are being conned. You can, okay, this is ultra-processed foods. Why don't you try eating this way, and let's just see how it works. And when they start feeling good, you're not taking that away from them. I say to them, you don't have to eat like this all the time. This is a once-in-a-while food, and it's working. So I think we are the ones who are creating the barrier by not educating the students properly. You know, I was lucky to go to a good school, and the education was different. I mean, we have to just try and make people part of what we're doing. You know, eat like this, you feel like this. If you don't believe me, okay, try this for 2 weeks. And when you try it for 2 weeks, and then they start feeling good, you're not taking away from them. Then they know. They talk about it because they stop me all the time, and they send me messages by the thousands in every week saying, Eddie, I've changed my life. I'm 17 years old because of you. I'm this, I'm that. My acne is gone. My mental health is improved. So it's working, and I want all of you to jump on board and support what we're doing. Let's just find ways. Even if you're not allowed to swear at school, just direct the kids to watch the videos and say, look, this guy is talking, he's helping a lot of students your age. So yeah, and then it will help them, and you'll get me more following, of course. So yeah, I think we're doing the right thing.
Okay. Instruction. Do I have time for one more question or not? Or you'd like, okay, questions from the audience. Okay, that's better. Yeah.
I'm Cynthia Myers-Morris, and my question, Gary Taubes on Friday said, fetal programming, and I was the solitary voice clapping loudly. But that, I'm wondering, how can we, in this time period right now, get to all those males and females who will be before, 6 months before pregnancy, at optimal weight, optimal health, so that they can have all their hormones in the right place to have the fetal beginning, to eliminate all these things that we've been talking about all weekend long. Gary, how?
Well, first, thank you. First of all, it's hard to get anyone, a lot of the world only realizes they're pregnant when they're pregnant. So getting them 6 months in advance is going to be difficult. Again, we got to get the message straight. We got to understand what's driving the problem. I don't think people have to be at a normal weight. I don't think it's actually the weight. I think it's the metabolic environment from what they're eating and what they're being told to eat when they're pregnant, and given the wrong information. So we have to get to their OBGYNs, whatever they're called in the UK, and you've got to agree on what the message is. Like, what should you tell these women? And how do you make the healthiest fetal programming is the idea that basically we're programmed in the womb. So whatever our mothers are eating and their health is determining our future. And, you know, I think that would solve a lot of the problem. A lot of the socioeconomic differences we see could even be related to what's happening when the kids are pregnant, the mothers, and
Does that include the fathers as well?
yeah, well, absolutely. So
a lot of men think that it's okay. We throw one in, you know, and then it's developed, but they don't realize that that one is part of them, you know. And so if they've got fucked mitochondria, it's going to, give the kids fucked health.
anyway, so short answer is I don't know what the answer is. But I do think we have to solve the problem. And I agree that that's maybe a big portion of what we're seeing in terms of specific chronic diseases as we get older and as they occur younger and younger. And it's always with me, it starts with the agreeing on what the right answer is, and we in this room agree, but there are other rooms full of people who disagree with us, and so ideally figure out who's right.
Hi, thank you so much. I completely agree with particularly what you've been saying, Eddie, that we need to start at grassroots. And I think in addition to that, I strongly feel that modeling is really, really important, particularly from us here in the room who's got children, because this is now a bit of an advertisement now, because in our household, it's becoming of a running joke that our 9-year-old and a 13-year-old, they always joke about, oh, is that going to cause insulin resistance and all that. So our dinner table is like a conversation about insulin, and they know more about insulin resistance than any other doctor friends or colleagues that I have, and it's so fascinating. And without us telling him, thank you, without us telling any of our children, and I was telling you this, Eddie, and waiting for you to promote that he has created his own YouTube video of his own cooking, to our astonishment, and we didn't even teach him any of that, and I was so shocked. So please follow him. His name is Crusader Cooks with a K.
Yes, he does.
With a mask, yeah, and he hides his identity. He puts his own mask that he creates in a junk modeling. Honestly, he cooks his low carb keto food. The only thing that's not low carb there is fried rice. Thank you. That was just a bit of an advertisement. Crusader Cooks with a K.
I'm coming back to you. Sorry, gang. That was a bit of skipping just for entertainment value. There you go.
I love the skipping. I'm a first-year nutritional therapy student and mother of 2 boys under the age of 5. What can I do to help?
You just learn everything they teach you and then do the opposite.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Oh, here we go. Helen's got a question.
Right. Oh, that was brilliant. Thank you. So my question is about the supply of food to the country, because the ultra-processed food companies are not doing this just for the hell of it. They're doing it because they want food to be cheap. They want to have it with a long shelf life. So let's say Eddie works. Everyone changes their diet. Can we actually supply the food to be able to feed people meats and vegetables and real food?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. I came into this country when I was like 20 years old, and that was possible. We were doing it. You know, we're going to farms. My wife and I used to go to farms. We used to buy eggs. Remember, we used to buy eggs from this. I was about 20 years old. Let's go buy eggs from this farm. And the the ladies were a little bit older, and I used to flirt with them. And they give me free trays. I'd buy 3 trays, and I come back with like 4 or sometimes 5, because and we used to cook. We did it before. It's just that all of a sudden, no, guys, chill. Let's make it convenient for you. It's that word, convenient. But let's say, yeah, we need to empower the farmers. We need to empower the farmers. Then we need to, and I've already started doing that. I mean, there's a local butcher's that I go there every week, and I make a video, and he said to me, Eddie, you made us famous. For no reward, because I want people to buy their food from the grocers. I want the people to buy their food from if you go to the supermarket, buy from the right places, and it's working. It can work. I think if we make cooking cool again, empower the farmers, empower the butchers, empower the grocers. We buy from them, and that will make the money, and then it makes them, more people will open. If you say, no, hang on, I've got butchers, and it's like literally it's inundated with so many people. You find another butchers who open straight away, because it becomes a lucrative business, because now it's not. The butchers are struggling, but if we empower them, if we give them our money, at the end of the day, we are the ones with the money, not these fuckers. They want our money. They want our money. If you don't give it to them, give it to the right people, we're winning.
I think we can also help teach our kids how to grow things. I mean, Birmingham, we've got really long gardens, and that's my granddad used to say to us that it was designed that way so that they could keep the donkeys, and each house would grow something different, and they'd swap it around, they'd share it. So we could go back to that as well. I know it's going to take a while, but it is possible. Yeah, and chickens. Yeah.
Cool. Right. This is the last question, I'm afraid, because we've run out of time. There you go.
Well, it's not really a question, but I think it's a bit silly that in pharmacies, for people to buy, there are lollipops and sweets when, yeah.
Comments on that?
Perfect. I agree, and I'm going to add to that. I think it's shocking that, especially with secondary schools, nearly every secondary school is within 100 metres of a fast food outlet that are catering to those kids, a newsagent selling rubbish catering to those kids, Greggs, KFC. They target schools, and that's another thing that needs to stop. We need to stop the access to that horrendous thing. Well, schools have tried to shut them down, to get them away, and they are just inundating. Oh, don't get me on hospitals and hospital food. Shops like W.H. Smith, you want to go in to get a book and you shove down your face. We just need to stop the horrendous thing that is happening with all this fake rubbish crap.
Right, very, very last question. Here we go.
Hi, Eddie. I was just wondering if you could also come to my school, because.
In this country, it's frowned upon for some black guy to be walking around in your school. I have to be invited. It would look so dodgy if I just turned up at your school. So please talk to your teachers and say, look, that's exactly what they did at Eton College, and that's what the other schools are doing. So talk to your teachers and say, you know what, we want to hear from this guy, and I promise I will not swear if it's a primary school.